She is a medical care administrator for the Department of Health here in Erie County. I've even seen her on the news recently. I mentioned that to her. You might see her as well. Last year, she started these presentations for our dental residents, and it was an extremely helpful session. So I'm going to hand the presentation over to her now. This will be recorded, and I'll be taking attendance just by looking at your names up here. So thanks again, Cheryl. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Okay. Thank you all for signing on. Really appreciate it. We are in the middle of a COVID pandemic, but the opioid epidemic has not abated at all. It's actually increased. So all of us have a role in this to really decrease the deaths, decrease the overdoses in the community. So thank you up front. At the end of the presentation, if you would like Narcan, you want it mailed to your home, you want a hard copy of your certificate of training, because we will email you one, but if you'd like a hard copy mailed with it, please directly email me. My email is at the end of the presentation, also in the chat. Email me your mailing address and your full name so that I can get it correctly, and it'll get in the mail to you. In this day of COVID and really trying to stay isolated, really, really encouraging people to do it in this fashion. So on that note, we'll get started. This is the Erie County Opiate Epidemic Task Force that you see up here on your screen. There's 7 work groups, and they were developed by an executive order by the county executive in 2016. It was in direct response to the number of deaths that we were seeing, and it came from our medical examiner's offices, the numbers. And I'll show you the numbers as we go through here. They're very disturbing. We really have been working hard as a community on this. We have a very effective task force, but the past few months during COVID, with the isolation, we're missing people and we're losing them. So anywhere we can identify them is critical. 7 work groups: law enforcement, families and consumers, community education comes out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, the physicians, Dr. Burstein, Dr. Updike. They've really changed medical practice. Prescribing has changed. Access to medical care has changed. This is a chronic disease. It's no different than, say, things like diabetes or high blood pressure. When you have this disease, you have it for the rest of your life. So treating it as a chronic disease with a long-term plan with your primary care doc really is where we're going to. Now, dental, you have primary care in dental. It's very similar. So knowing your patient, knowing their history, having these conversations are critical. Dr. Lynch, she's really developed a huge program, which is actually going statewide on August 15th. Currently, it's called Buffalo Matters. You can access medication-assisted treatment in any emergency department in Western New York. It has been a long journey. We've trained many, many providers to be what's called X-waivered, so they're able to prescribe buprenorphine and carry a patient load. It's been a journey on this, and it's something that needs to occur. This is not any different, once again, than any other chronic disease. And when we segment it out and we put people in special places, they tend not to be as successful. Addressing this, like any chronic disease, you go to your primary care doc, and then you get your wraparound services there, and you go back to your specialty to develop the plan. So looking at this differently, we've been pretty successful. My group is the Naloxone Access Group. We've been very active the past few months. We've had to change what we're doing. We've put some programs in place to make it accessible to people while they are staying at home and doing what we asked them to do. The treatment providers is actually run by our new commissioner. Our new commissioner is Mark O'Brien. Mike Rainey has retired. So our new commissioner, Mark O'Brien, partners with Julie Gutowski from Spectrum Health Services, and they run this group. They meet monthly. They've changed access to care. A whole lot of things have happened. So we'll get going now. This is the United States of America, and this is to put it in perspective for you. In the United States of America, we have 4.5% of the world's population. Yet, we write 80% of the world's OxyContin prescriptions and 90% of the world's opioid prescriptions overall. Today, we know from research that 86% of people that are struggling with opiate use disorder today started with prescription drugs, whether they were prescribed directly to them or came from a well-meaning friend or family member. We really overprescribed. Now, that has changed with iStop, particularly in New York State, the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. But pulling this into look, if you look at us in Erie County up here, we're very, very dark colored. That was not good. This map is 2.5 years old. If I were able to show you it today for the past years, it would look better. Then we get into 2020 with COVID and things have changed drastically. Now, it's not just here in Erie County, it is across the country. It is everywhere. We're seeing the numbers of deaths increase. We're seeing the overdoses increase. We're seeing access to different substances. We're seeing a lot of people being alone. So we will proceed here. When you all leave this training today, you will be certified for 2 years. You'll learn how to recognize an overdose, what to do about it, and what kind of medications to use. There is one medication that reverses an overdose. The brand name is Narcan. The generic name is Naloxone. That's all we got, folks. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. This is what we're going to talk about. What happened? I did allude to it. What happened was iStop. It was very well-meaning. We limited the access to the prescription opioids. People were unable to doctor shop, self-medicate, but what we did not take into account was how sick people were. People could not just stop taking these things, folks. We were unaware of that as a society. We have a lot of self-blame going on, but we are working on fixing it. Once again, this is a chronic disease. So when they stop taking them, and they can't, and it's 10 to 15% of the population that has a genetic predisposition for the disease of opiate use disorder, we need to treat them appropriately. You're going to learn the signs and symptoms of an opioid overdose. The Good Samaritan law, this is critical, particularly on a college campus, actually came from the parents of underage drinkers. It protects you if you call for help. We'll talk about ESAP and SEP. This is syringe access and disposal. It's also drug disposal. As I said, 86% of people started with prescription opioids. We can't keep extras at home. It's way too tempting for people that are struggling. We run a very robust drug and needle disposal program in Western New York. We have a burn coming up Monday, and we just had a burn last week. The old medications go into kiosks. They look like mailboxes in places that are monitored by law enforcement. They gather all these things, and they're burned at Covanta Energy. We're burning approximately a ton of old medications every month. So think about it, a ton, 2,000 pounds. It's an awful lot of medications that were going in our water stream, in people's hands. They are not all opioids. About 10% are controls. Use of Narcan or Naloxone to reverse an overdose. As I said before, this is all we have. I know they're looking at new items, but this is it. And then if you do use Narcan, I want to know what happened, and you'll see why. I'm going to show you some data. We've learned a lot about the epidemic from these scenes. We've actually published an article in the Journal of Substance Use about a month ago. It's about interviews with 35 people that have been reversed with Narcan in the past year. It's about a 2-hour interview, and we got some really interesting information from them. Key things came out of them, and we'll share that. So this is Erie County data I want to share with you. This comes from the medical examiner office. This is the latest data I have. It is from July 23rd. So looking at this data set, looking back at 2012 and 2013, the level was kind of flat. It was about 100 deaths a year. We now know that was like the OxyContin bump. Previous to that, we were seeing about 70 deaths a year. 2014, that's the year iStop was put in place. We saw a bump, 127 deaths. And then it escalated. It ran out of control. 256, 301. The year we had 301 deaths is when the task force was created. This is a legal body. We meet quarterly. We just had a meeting this past Monday. They are virtual now. Anyone is welcome to attend. The next meeting will be in November. It'll be the second Monday of November, actually, because the first Monday is the election week. So we get better attendance the second week. So we came together and we had about a 17% increase in deaths. We went down to 251 deaths. We changed access to care. We changed everything we could think of. We increased the knowledge out there that this is a chronic disease. I do want you to take away, if you take away nothing from this talk, no one woke up one day and said, I think I'll be a drug addict. That is no one's life plan, but they're very sick. So getting the understanding out there to people that we can help people in treatment. This is a very treatable disease. It's treatable with medications. The medications are buprenorphine or Suboxone brand name or methadone. Methadone is a full opiate agonist. Buprenorphine is a partial agonist. There's another medication out there. It is called Vivitrol that you may hear about. That is naltrexone, which is long-acting Narcan. It sounds good, but the research is showing us that when people come off it, they're actually at a higher risk for overdose than they were to begin with. So really not the best option. So we worked together. We went down to 156 deaths last year in 2019. Absolutely amazing. This year, 2020, we have 127 pending cases. That means the toxicology cases aren't back yet. They're not all going to be due to opioids, but we do have 44 confirmed. Very disturbing. Our numbers will be higher if we continue on this trend. We're really working with families, friends, loved ones to get out there, support your loved ones. Very male disease, 3-to-1 male consistently all the way through 2020. So looking at 7 years of data now, this has not changed. But we think of the initiation of opioid use. Think of professions that are very physical. Think of things like first responders. Think of medical people. Think of construction workers. Think of anyone that has a profession where you can be hurt. I'm a nurse by trade. In my age group, I don't know a nurse without a back injury. We didn't have equipment to transfer people, things like that. We just did it. And they gave you a lot of scripts because you had to keep working. So this is kind of the initiation for many people that we never anticipated. We're like, no, 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 it's a person in a dark alley, no, no, this is everybody. This is literally everybody. We looked at this here by race and ethnicity. This is really disturbing because this particular epidemic doesn't really seem to care if you're green with yellow polka dots. I want you to be careful of the 2020 numbers. That is only a very small subset. The 2020 numbers, these are confirmed through toxicologies. It is not the full set. When I look at the full potential overdoses, it looks exactly like every other year. And that really is disturbing to us because historically, I mean, we've always targeted populations and we should not do that. And I hope we've learned our lesson here. This is affecting everyone. You can be green with yellow polka dots. And it is affecting people. We can't say because you are living in Colden, this is not affecting you. Because you are an affluent, white-collar, white worker, this is not affecting you. Because you are an affluent African-American worker working at UB and you're a professor, this is not affecting you. That's not how this works. This affects everybody. So we've really tried to take race, ethnicity out of it and understand that people are just sick. We need to be there to support them regardless of who you are. You can't look at someone and know that they're sick, but we need to know. We looked at the ages. This is extremely disturbing this year. The ages are getting much, much older. Now, I want to caution you. These numbers are very small here right now, but if you look at this, they're getting older. Our increasing age groups are 40 to over 60. Historically, our average age of death has been a 38-year-old male. This year, I do believe it is going to be older, but people are isolated, they're alone, they're at home, they're doing what we asked them to do. They're staying home, or they're in households where they have not been, having access to things they haven't had. Family members are bringing people back into their homes. We want to protect people, but we also have to understand the disease of opiate use disorder or substance use disorder does not go away. So we still need to provide good wraparound and support. Other things we're seeing, different drugs that are cut with the fentanyls, and that's what's killing people. So here are those stats to break them down for you. Looking at race and ethnicity, it presented in multiple ways, and age, really disturbing with the age. We're seeing it going up, up, up. Residents at time of death. Well, consistently, it's about a third the city of Buffalo, 2/3 everywhere else. What we are seeing this year, and I want to caution you again, that is not all of them. When we have them all through, it will look the same because I looked at the pendings. Every town, every village. Literally every town, every village. This is a different way to look at it. This is by pie chart. We've looked at the towns, we've looked at the village. There is no place that is unaffected here. Like no place. What are we seeing in people's toxicologies? Well, it's all fentanyl, folks, and that has not changed. 2019 is there, 2020, and the first ones we're seeing it is fentanyl also. Fentanyl is a legal drug. It is kind of one of the most powerful opioids out there. What we're seeing on the street is not fentanyl. These are analogs of the legal drug, and the reason they're out there, we're learning, is because they're not even on the schedule. So when law enforcement finds them, unless it is at the federal level, it's very hard for people to be charged with these things. They're very cheap to produce. When people are struggling from opiate use disorder, they will take any type of opioid to not be sick. This is not about having a party. This is about functioning like you and I do every day. It's about getting out of bed in the morning and not having diarrhea. It's about not wanting to rip your skin off because you got creepy crawlies underneath it. It's about not vomiting every time you move. This is what people are doing. They're trying to just manage and maintain. This is the most disturbing thing we're seeing, and it continues to increase. Over 45% of our deaths so far in this time frame, and we're looking at 2020, are attributed to a combination of cocaine and fentanyl. Many people, when we interview them, they'll be like, cocaine's not a drug. I'm like, no, cocaine is a drug. And many people that are utilizing cocaine will tell you they do not have a drug problem. I was just out in a bar and I did a line. Well, you can't do that anymore. It's all cut with fentanyl, as you can see here. Many of our deaths are being attributed to this when the tox screens come back. There was an incident 2 months ago in North Tonawanda on Oliver Street. 4 individuals came home in the evening, like 11:30 at night. They bought a bag of something they thought was cocaine. They all did, to quote, a line. 3 out of 4 died. 4th individual woke up in the morning and found their friends in various places around their household dead. They thought it was a cocaine, and it was not. It was cut with fentanyl. It was almost pure fentanyl. People that have an opiate use disorder, that have been struggling with opioids for a long time, have developed a tolerance. The way opioids work, the more you take, the more you need over time. You develop more receptor sites for them to land on. Those are your mu receptors, your body's protective factor. People that are struggling and people that are not struggling, that maybe just do, to quote, a line of cocaine or a bump in the bathroom, they have no tolerance to opioids. This is just knocking them flat and they're dead. They're anticipating a stimulant, and this is not a stimulant. So we really have to get that messaging out there. Our county executive, our health commissioner, our mental health commissioner held a press conference last week. We put it out on social media. Please share this. People, this is not safe. We're losing so many people, and this is a population with zero tolerance. So we're working with law enforcement to track these things, and this is what I wanted to share with you. These are suspected overdoses and overdose deaths. My source is ODMAP. Law enforcement has become a very important partner here. They're at all scenes in Erie County. They document them for us. They look at the scene evidence and they see what's going on. The numbers escalated, and why I share this with you. January, February, we saw what we anticipated. We've been on this trajectory. We kind of have an idea what's happening. We will always have overdoses, but we didn't have lethalities. March hit. And if you look at March, that is when COVID hit. We shut down here at the county March 16th. I can tell you the date. I came in from out of town. From that point forward, if you look at it, we do have overdoses, but the rate of lethality is much, much higher. When we started to find people, they were alone at home. They were not in the traditional places. Historically, we would find people on a job site, in a bathroom, at a fast food restaurant, maybe in the parking lot, a drugstore in the parking lot, in a bathroom. We started to find them at home, alone, single family home, way too late. So we looked at residence at time of death like I showed you before. This is an easier way to see it, so I want to show you this quickly. Here's 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and there's 18, 19. And I just ran through those quick because we've also mapped this now. So mapping it, we looked at 5 years worth because people look at pie charts and they look at names and they don't get it. When we mapped it out, it was an eye-opener to us. This is not what we anticipated, to be honest with you. These are deaths that occurred over 5 years, and we were like, wow, they're all going to be in the city of Buffalo. They're going to be on the west side because that's where opioids are, not where it occurred. Oh, it's going to be on the east side. We have a lot of drug use there. This is our judgment, which was completely 100% incorrect. Do not judge. We did it by quintile to look at it. It's even more apparent. Then we mapped it out, and this is just 1 month I want you to be aware of. We looked at this, and we're like, oh my gosh, everywhere, because right away we're looking at, quote, targeted populations. There's no targeted population. This is where overdoses were occurring. Now, where there are less overdoses, there's less population. So this makes sense. When it's population dense, there's more overdoses. Population light, there's less. But they're everywhere in the county. There is no place this is not happening. And this is what people have to understand. This is 1 month. So this is the type of opioid. Starting in 2014, what did people die from? Everybody in Erie County that dies, and we don't know why, goes to the medical examiner. They have an autopsy and toxicology screen done. The toxicology screens are the things that take some time to get back. And it's really just due to the fact that we don't know what kind of drugs are out there. Many times they are testing for, everything they have and nothing's showing up. So they have to look for new things. And these are analogs. They're analogs of the legal fentanyl. They just change a little bit, like there'll be a fentanyl molecule and they'll put a butyryl chain on it. They'll put an acetyl chain on it. They'll put an acryl chain on it. And it really just modifies it just enough that it is not the drug that was scheduled by the FDA, and they become more potent. So in 2014, as you can see, about half the deaths were due to prescription drugs. That's other opioids. Fentanyl started to appear. Heroin was there. 2015, fentanyl started to take over. Prescription drugs were limited, and that's what we wanted with iStop. What we did not take into account was how sick people were. 2016, 2017, it's all fentanyl. And the same with 2018 and 2019. And I am reinforcing this because people do not seem to pick up on the fact that this is fentanyl. We don't know what's out there. It comes off the dark web. Initially, it was going to Mexico. They were cutting heroin. It was coming up here. As you saw with the initial slides, it wasn't heroin. Today, we know that people are very savvy. They use the dark web. They order things on there. It comes in their mailbox. One of the biggest purveyor of drugs in the mailbox, U.S. mail. We continue to track the piece with the cocaine, and that's here, and I want you to be aware of that. Share that over and over. We weren't really sure what we were seeing, so we went to Central Police Services because we were kind of in disbelief, like, what is this stuff out there? Holy macaroni. Well, Central Police Services, and this is from crime scene, they bring it there to their lab. So we went to their lab and compared what we were seeing in our medical examiner lab, and they were the same drugs, believe it or not. So all of these analogs, looking at 2014, we saw heroin. We saw heroin in overdoses. Fentanyl started to appear. By 2017 and 2018, it's all fentanyl. In 2019, 100%. Now, these folks are not rocket scientists. These are polysubstance. No one's out there, like measuring out weights and measures here. They're just dumping things in and selling it. So polysubstance. It could be many different fentanyl analogs, so they're increasing the potency there. Little historical perspective, this isn't new, folks. Heroin has been around forever, literally forever. Product of the Bayer Company before the Harrison Narcotics Act in 1914, and that's where scheduled drugs came from, and then they started selling aspirin. But if you look, Mesopotamia, we noted it in the Bible. They talk about it in historical papers. This isn't new. It's a natural. Heroin comes from a poppy. You grow a poppy, you manage the field, you do all these things to it, and then you eventually create heroin. It's very expensive. What we've learned is fentanyl is really cheap. This is actually butyryl fentanyl. This is what it looks like. This is from a bust in South Buffalo. It was in 2014. It was a complete fluke. It was a domestic incident. The block in the top right corner is a kilo of pure butyryl fentanyl. The issue was when this occurred, and they took it to the lab, they didn't have a test for it. We didn't know what it was. So our lab identified a new drug, developed a test for it, and that's been around forever. In the bottom right, in the gentleman's open hand, the one open hand, those are bags of dope. That is how heroin is sold. But it's not heroin, it's fentanyl. In our community, it's called dope, or it's called manteca. That is the term someone will use. I live in the west side of Buffalo. Dope sold in the west side of Buffalo. What I hear when someone's selling, manteca, mommy, Cinco de Lore. Someone sold me a bag of dope for $5. And mommy, because I'm a female. Terminology is there because if I'm not looking for that, I'm just going to walk by that person and be like, what are you saying? But if I know what I'm looking for, I'm going to get it. Now, $5 to $10 a bag, that's in that gentleman's hand. Prescription drugs you can't access anymore. It's kind of cheap. In the double hands, those are called bundles. There's 10 bags together, and they're usually cheaper. Economies of scale. The stuff we have around here, you'll hear on TV about China White and black tar, and we don't have any of that fancy stuff. What we have here, exactly in that picture, it's kind of tan. That's what it looks like on the street. Bags may be marked, and you'll hear me say bags. Those are bags. We don't get baggies, Ziploc baggies. This is how dope is sold. It's very little powder. Heroin around here isn't really potent, but what is potent is fentanyl. The equivalent of 3 to 5 grains of salt is all it takes to kill a non-opioid user literally on the spot. So think about how much that is. This is drug mess in the community today, and you will see this everywhere. I want you to be aware of it because we can't leave it all over the place. I take pictures all over. On the far left, that's a broader picture of the same scene. So pulling in the middle, what has been pulled in, that's a cooker area. So someone has set up a board. You see a bunch of open bags there. You also see those little silver discs. Those are cookers. Those are the bottoms of pop cans that someone has cut off because it's concave, and you can put your powder in it. You can add some liquid to it, you can heat it up, and then you can draw it up in a syringe. Or you can put it in a tampon, and you can take it that way. In the far right, if you look, there's multiple tampons on the ground there. We've learned many people in this epidemic, they're not identifying a substance. They're like, I am just taking medicine. I'm sick. I got to take this medicine. I'm not an IV drug user. What are you talking about? So creative ways to get this into your body. Now there's many needle caps up here. There's Band-Aids. These are all open bags. There's all kinds of things here. We cannot leave this all over the community. Are you going to pick it up and hold it up with a bare hand, put it near your eyes, nose, or mouth? Absolutely not. But are we going to clean it up and leave it so our rest of our community is not into it? Yeah, absolutely. But we have to be careful. That 3 to 5 grains of salt is a problem, folks. This is a lethal amount of heroin compared to fentanyl, the analogs, and then carfentanil. Carfentanil is actually a big animal tranquilizer. It's a legal drug, something that's used in zoos. It's used for zoological purposes, not for people. Our zoo does not use it here. Now, to give you a perspective, the fentanyl in the middle is about 50 to 100 times stronger than the heroin that's on the street. And then we take carfentanil. That can be thousands of times stronger. But remember, it's for elephants. It's not for people. So you're all going to be trained overdose responders. You need to get a refresher every 2 years. And I'll tell you, it's just really products change. We've had different products come out, and actually a new product just came out from Adapt Pharma now, which is a temperature-sensitive version of Narcan. It has a red plunger on it versus the white plunger of those that I'll send you. It's a great product, works easy, but that would be my biggest recommendation. Also, the drugs are changing. As I shared with you the cocaine scenario, Narcan works to reverse people, not on cocaine, but on the fentanyl that is in the cocaine. So making sure that people have it in their hands. Contacting EMS, that's your primary job. Also letting them know if Naloxone or Narcan was used or if they need more. And then if Narcan is used, I want to know what happened because it helps us address the epidemic. So who overdoses? Anybody. Literally anybody. Among long-term opioid users, people that have experience. People are still taking prescription opioids. They're being quite creative too. They're chopping them up. They're doing these things. They self-medicate. They don't have enough. They borrow from a friend. They go on the dark web and buy some more. Problem is they're contaminated. They're not what they thought they were because no FDA is monitoring the dark web. All of these reasons. After someone gets out of rehab or detox, this is the old school way. We don't detox people. Inappropriate. There's nothing medical there. That's like, remember what you did, you bad person. Remember how bad you felt. What we do with folks is transition them immediately to medication-assisted treatment. They do very well then. So changing that mindset. After incarceration, locally, bail reform has changed a lot of things, but our holding center and jail do not provide medication-assisted treatment. So locally, if someone is arrested and they are on Suboxone or methadone and they're being managed, they will be taken off of it. Very dangerous. That's a dangerous time. So we're working on that also. Prescription drug users, well, you really can't get those a lot. So people are purchasing on the street. So how does an overdose happen? Anything but fentanyl. You have a little bit of time. I want you to be aware of that and remember that. Now, fentanyl, that is wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, done. That hits like a brick and people go down. But anything else, you have some time. You get it into your system, you metabolize it. So think about you have a headache. You take a Tylenol. When that Tylenol is in your mouth, your headache does not go away. But half hour, 45 minutes later, it starts to abate. Same thing with opioids when you take them. You take whatever it is that you take, it metabolizes in your system, and half hour, 40 minutes later, it starts to land on, they're called your mu receptors. Those are your opioid receptors. We all have opioid receptors, and we have them because our body produces natural opioids. Our system is that dopamine serotonin system, the pleasure system. When we introduce outside opioids, a couple things happen. And we didn't used to know this, so we've got to stop beating ourselves up, but we know it today. Couple things. One, after you take them for a few weeks, you get more receptor sites. Your body produces more opioid receptor sites. And that's your body's protective factor. It's not going to let you overdose. It's like, oh, you've been taking these things. We're not going to let that happen. There's more places for it to land. The human body is pretty amazing. Now, secondary things are happening that we weren't aware of. Human body's also pretty lazy in some ways. Like, you're giving this to me? I don't have to make them anymore. So their own production slows down. So now the chemical the body needs is not there, so you're craving. Now 10 to 15% of the population will go on to the disease of opiate use disorder. Everybody will feel kind of cruddy the next day after taking an opioid. It's a hangover. You put an outside chemical in your body. Everybody will go through a little bit of withdrawal if they've been on them a few weeks because you got to get used to not having them. The person with opiate use disorder, it's long term. Their body chemical system is messed up. It's not producing what they need. They have so many receptor sites, even what they produce isn't enough. And that's where medication assisted treatment comes into play. So I took some opioids. We'll use Lortab, and I'll go through an overdose scenario. I took some Lortab because I tore up my knee at work. I did this about 3 weeks ago. I went to the doctor. I went to the ER. They gave me a script. They told me to go to the surgeon. I went to the surgeon. Told me I need surgery. Absolutely. But I just really don't have time right now. So they gave me another script too. Well, I've been kind of self-medicating because they were working pretty good. I was getting 5 milligram Lortab. They're working pretty good. I was taking 2 of them every 4 hours as, you know, it was supposed to be as needed, but I was taking pretty regular, but they were keeping the pain away. Notice the past couple days, after about 2.5 hours, the pain is unbearable. What's happened is I've developed more opioid receptor sites. So the medication I've taken is spread thinner and it wears off quicker because I've metabolized it. I no longer have enough there in my system. Well, like any good self-medicating person, I'm just going to double my dose. I'm going to take 4 of them. So I flat out just took too much, even with my extra receptor sites. I took so much this time that I filled up all my receptor sites, all the extra ones too, and I have extra in my bloodstream. So as I metabolize it or I use it off the receptor sites, the extra in my bloodstream is going right back on. What you're seeing on the outside, I'm not breathing and I'm not responsive. That's an overdose. Stereotypical needle in the arm, we don't see that a whole lot anymore. Haven't seen it unless the fentanyls are involved. So how does this work? Opioids repress the urge to breathe. They decrease the response to carbon dioxide. That's what makes you breathe, and that leads to respiratory depression and you die. So slowed breathing, your breathing stops, your heart stops, and you die. We want to intercede before your heart stops because within that cascade, that's like 4 or 5 minutes down the road. The human brain cells die off after about 4 minutes without oxygen. We can restart your heart, but by then it's too late. So these are overdose signs and symptoms. There's a couple scenarios here, folks. The first one is heavy, uncontrollable nodding, and you may see this and not even know that you've seen it. When you're talking to somebody and in the middle of a word, they just go out like this. Head falls down. Head goes back. Eyes roll back in their head. And you're like, hey, what's going on? Like, what do you mean? I'm fine. You just fell out. No, I didn't. That will be the conversation you have with someone because they truly believe they're doing the right thing. The difference in that and an overdose, they're still arousable. They can be drooling and making a mess and be like, ugh, and you're talking to them like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And what you hear from them is, in their head, they thought they said, I am perfectly fine, leave me alone. So knowing that, they're still responding. It may not be correct response, but they are still responding to you. The difference in the overdose, they are not responsive. You give them a little shake, nothing. Next thing you do, it's called a sternal rub. You take your knuckles and you rub on the sternum bone very hard. You want to make sure that person is out before you do that. It hurts. This is a test of consciousness. They're non-responsive. You gave them a shake. You did this. You do not have to wait for them to stop breathing. They can still be gurgling. But the key is non-responsive and struggling. That's an overdose, and we need to act quickly because a fatal overdose is death. Most overdoses are witnessed. Historically, family, friends, employers, that's who's been making the calls. During COVID, problem is no one has been there to make the call. There's a program called Never Use Alone. It is a non-judgmental program. We will send you all these links. When you email me at the end, it will come in your package. Please share this with people. People call this phone number. I don't care if it's cocaine. I don't care what it is. Someone will stay on the phone with them. If they don't respond in an agreed set amount of time, they will send EMS to help them. If they do respond, all information is deleted and we all go about our business. Not about tracking people, it's about keeping them alive. Witnesses are trying screwbally things. The only thing that works is Narcan. I want to reiterate that over and over. Putting someone in a tub of cold water, you're going to drown them. They're not breathing. That doesn't work. Putting ice in their armpits and underwear, which is really popular now, does not work. That came from a Netflix special. Doesn't work. Giving someone a shot of homemade saline solution that you made out of table salt and water doesn't work. The only thing that works is Narcan. And the worst thing that someone can do is leave someone. If they're going to do that, just call 911. It is okay. Call, let them know what's going on, and then go about your business. So Narcan in action. Naloxone is the generic name. Narcan is the brand name. Locally, we use the 4 milligram version of the Adapt Pharma Narcan. It is very effective. It's a one-use unit. You use it and you throw it away. According to the manufacturer, when you use Narcan and you revive someone, it should stay on the receptor site 30 to 90 minutes. What we have learned here, it lasts about 15 to 20 minutes. That being said, critical to call EMS to have transport available. It does not take one dose of Narcan to reverse an overdose around here. In general, 2 to 3. I have seen 4 to 5s. Other reasons to get back up behind you because you're just not going to have enough Narcan. So causes complete withdrawal. I will tell you, you are not going to make friends. You're probably going to learn new words. This is where I would really recommend take a look at the research study we just published. It was incredible, the information people shared with us. They shared information with us about what happened at a scene. 2 key things have come through from this research study, and I want to share these with you. 1, a Narcan reversal is not a life-changing event. Very disturbing to many people, but it really isn't. It's a medical event. I come from a medical perspective. It is a medical event. Something else changes behavior, and every single person told us the same thing. Secondarily, there's a time of kind of amnesia around an overdose where they really don't remember. So you're in an overdose scene and you're like yelling at that person like, what were you thinking? Oh my gosh. And then you see them the next day. Oh my God, what were you doing? What were you thinking? And they're like, who are you? They truly believe and ask, who are you? They have no idea who you are. So don't get angry. Don't get aggravated. Just kind of walk through the situation. If you use Narcan on the wrong person, you're not going to hurt them. There's no adverse effects. I have taken so much Narcan training law enforcement because they were all afraid of it. If you're our opiate naive, feel free. It just tastes lousy. Doesn't do anything to you if there's not an opioid there. You can buy it over the counter. It comes in 4 different formats. It's covered by everybody's prescription plan, but you don't need a script. You go to the drugstore, you tell them you want to buy Narcan, whatever your plan, give them your script card, is covered. Whatever your copay is, up to $40. New York State will even cover that cost. So this is some information. This is why I asked you to report back and tell us what happened, because we learned about the epidemic from Narcan usage. We didn't know a lot. We made a lot of assumptions. So we looked at zip codes where Narcan was used. This is about 2,500 reports provided by police and fire. The zip codes were not where we thought reversals would happen. They are rural, they are suburban, they are urban, they're everywhere. We all were like, oh gosh, it's all going to be in 14201, 14202, I'm talking about the Lower West Side. This is historically where opioids have been used. That's probably one of our lower areas. So we had to rethink, readjust, and understand this is the whole community. It's everywhere. We looked at time of day when reversals were being done because we wanted to be able to reach out to people appropriately, work with workplaces, work with families. This is very shift-driven, it appears. It's around a work shift. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Key times. We were looking at opioid reversal forms. I was seeing a lot of vomiting on them. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Makes total sense now. If someone overdoses and they just ate lunch and we use Narcan, it's going to come out. Lunch is going. So we had to learn. We could not make assumptions. Everything we are doing today is data-driven. We looked at the time of the day and the day of the week. This is probably the biggest eye-opener. We were all under the assumption everyone's having a party on the weekend. Those are our low uses. Big eye-opener. And this is why I ask you to learn to use Narcan and to use it. This is somebody, folks. The behaviors associated with opiate use disorder can be horrible. I'll speak to it personally. I've lost a sister to this. My family had a 30-year run. Behaviors were horrible. Underneath, she was a very good person. This is somebody. Always remember that. Give them a chance. This disease is very much like, think about tobacco. We know a lot about tobacco. When people quit smoking, they are not successful the first time. 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And then eventually they're successful. This is the same way. But here, if they are not breathing, they don't get another chance. So just keep that in mind. You may see behaviors that blow your mind, but if you can get past the disease and get that person on good medicine, the person will come back. But once they're gone, it is permanent. So we put a program in place with police. This is what I alluded to before. Police have been amazing in this epidemic. They care, they know their residents, and they've been out there delivering things. This is ODMAP. I am medical. HIPAA stops sharing everything. We've learned this. You all are medical also. Who do not have HIPAA parameters are police. So police reports were our key. I get police reports for overdose scenes. Each dot means there was an overdose. I reach out to whatever police department it is, and they send me a report form. From the report form, I have peers in recovery here that reach out to those individuals 24 to 72 hours later, and they offer them connection to care. What you're seeing here is the results that we have. This is, I believe, 157 people that we've interacted with after an overdose or at a time of a referral, which is the biggest key. So that bottom number, if you look, about 22, 23% of people connect to care after an overdose. We follow them for 90 days. They stay connected to care. Now, I am medical. I think that is horrible, atrocious. When I talk to people in the treatment, mental health, substance use disorder world, they think that is like a miracle. They expect 2 to 3 to 4% to connect to care. The amazing number is that top one. This is direct referrals by law enforcement from the community. They will run into somebody that they know that perhaps is in a domestic incident. Domestic is because they're getting money from hubby to go get drugs, or stealing grandma's money or drugs, all these things, and they directly refer them to the peer for care for link to treatment. 72% of people connect to care initially and they stay there. What we've learned is the human touch is amazing. I offer this to you for your patients also going down the road. When you have a patient in a chair and you're talking to them and they are telling you if they take that, and this is very hard. People have shame, they have embarrassment. If they share with you and you know, feel free, reach out to me. I'll link them to care and we'll go along that journey. So they don't have to be one of our statistics. The key here appears to be somebody that cares about them. Risk factors for overdose. Post-rehab, I brought that up before. Using alone. Never use alone. This is the key here. We put a text for Narcan program in place during the epidemic also. The phone number is 716-225-5473. Anybody can text. We will mail Narcan to your house. All of these resources are available to you. They're available for your patients also. Commonly used prescription opioids are still out there, and I share this with you because I want you to be cognizant and to think about it. If you are ordering them, please co-prescribe Narcan. A couple reasons. Children get into these things. They think they're candy. Narcan works on children also. There is a reason for pain management, but we have to be very careful. Every year we get a couple of reports. Somebody under 5 got into the medicine test. I had a 5-year-old in a training, and what he told us these were, and I can't get past this ever, I will never unsee this. He told us these were Pez candy specifically, and he told us the flavors. So that is how a 5-year-old sees, and they will do anything to get into them. Narcan works on them also, folks. So if you're ordering for your patients, please educate them on this. Lock them up. Make sure you have Narcan in the house, and if it happens, don't hide it. We can take care of this. You call poison control and they'll walk you through. This is the opiate poppy. Everybody always wants to see what it looks like. It's really pretty. Pretty poppy, but it'll kill you. But anybody seen The Wizard of Oz? Dorothy went to sleep in the poppy field. Dorothy did not go to sleep. Dorothy overdosed. That's subliminal messaging. And these are the kind of things in our society we have to be cognizant of, because you see that as a child, and then you're like, oh, that's okay. It's beautiful. So we have to be aware of this. A little bit of review here. In the first scenario, that nod, as much as you want to do something, you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to give someone Narcan there because that, let me tell you, will motivate them to get up really quickly. Especially someone that's been reversed before, because you're going to make every bad thing that they're trying to make not happen to them happen to them. They're going to get sick. They're going to hurt. They're probably going to have diarrhea and vomit and lose body fluids. They're going to be embarrassed and ashamed. So in the nod, when they're still arousable, still responsive, can't give them Narcan. Would I leave them? No. If I don't have time, like I see somebody on a street corner when I'm driving by, I'm going to call 911. I'm going to say, look, I see somebody standing on the corner of Main and Utica. And I use that corner because I've called for that corner. They are nodding out heavy. You need to send a car by with somebody with Narcan. Now, if the officer drives by and that person's gone, so be it. That's their job. They drive around the neighborhood. That's what we pay police to do. If that person went down, someone is there for a response and they have the right tools. So don't ever be afraid to call. In overdose, the difference is the lack of responsiveness. So that person, they can still be gurgling, but you give a good hard sternal rub and you got no response. At that point, you have to act quickly. A fatal overdose is death, and you got about 4 minutes before that brain dies. So just keep that in mind, folks. You got about 4 minutes. These are your steps to reverse an overdose, and they are always, always the same. I think I see an overdose. I went there, I gave him a shake. I did that little sternal rub there. I got no response. They're there kind of gurgling, but nothing's happening. I'm calling 911. I'm going to get them flat on their back. I'm going to do some rescue breathing. I'm going to give them Narcan. I'm going to put them in the recovery position. This is intranasal Narcan. This is what I'm going to give you. It's a one-piece unit. It is 4 milligrams. You open it up, you squirt it in one nostril, and it's gone, and you throw it away. Very effective. It's very little liquid. It is temperature sensitive, and I think you need to be careful with it in cars. There's a little glass vial inside of it with liquid. More so in the freezing end of it because it will break the glass vial when the liquid expands. The new product, I guess they put a product in so it doesn't freeze as hard, so it can be cold. Peel, place, press. Keep this routine in mind. This is how it works. This is what rescue breathing looks like. I'm going to caution you now during COVID, unless you have a very good mask, I would not rescue breathe. That is an aerosol disease. Get an ambu bag. But on the other end of the world, get the Narcan in them. So let's go through the steps. I came on a scene. I saw a person. I gave him a shake. I did a sternal rub. I got no response. I called 911. I think I have an overdose. I need a car with Narcan. This is what I'm going to do now. Get them flat on their back. I'm going to get their neck nice and long and extended. I'm going to give them 2 rescue breaths if I have a good mask or an ambu bag. If not, I'm just going to give them the Narcan. It works, so don't hesitate. I'm going to put the Narcan in one nostril and squeeze it. Do not squeeze it until it's in their nostril. Once you squeeze that, it's deployed. You can't stop it. So if that happens, it's okay. Just throw it away and open another one. Gave them 1 dose. Now I'm going to monitor them. They're on their back. Remember, 2 solid minutes. You have to give this medicine some time to absorb. It's getting absorbed through the mucous membranes in the sinus cavity, and it's getting to those mu receptors. Narcan has a stronger affinity to these receptors than opioids do. So what it does, it gets in there and it just pushes it off and it blocks that receptor. Now, when you do this, you put this person in full-blown withdrawal. I'm going to caution you over and over. You're going to learn new words. So wait 2 full minutes. If nothing happened, open your other dose of Narcan. Everybody's getting 2 in a box. Put it in the other nostril. Squirt. 2 more minutes. Most reversals around here are 2 to 3 doses. So don't hesitate to give more. Now, if they don't respond after 2 doses and you have more, wait 2 minutes, give them another one. I saw a 5 recently. This is due to the potencies of the fentanyls. You're not going to give someone too much Narcan. You're going to make their food taste yucky. It really tastes terrible. It's like, ugh. Kind of tastes like flu mist dripping down your throat. Now, if you do have a response, as quickly as you can, you need to roll them over in the recovery position. When you give someone Narcan, they're on their back, you are not going to hold them down. You're not going to do any of these crazy things. We've had to educate law enforcement. This is a medical response. When that person wakes up and they are waking up from a drug-induced sleep, you do not want to be right in their face. Because human nature, when someone's in your face when you wake up, you're going to start swinging. That is human nature. Like, get away from me. People are like, they're combative. I'm like, well, where were you? That is not combative. That is human nature. Secondarily, on about half the reports that I'm getting, there is some vomiting, and it is projectile. You don't want to be there. So roll them over on their side. This is the recovery position. This is a very good description. Get that top arm over, get the top leg over. If you prop their head on their underarm and extend their neck, they'll stay there. When they come back, they're not going to feel good. So you gave them the Narcan, they're on their back. All of a sudden you see like a little coughing noise. That's when you want to roll them over in the recovery position. If you prop them up, you don't have to hold them. Just let it happen. They're going to be rocking and rolling. You're probably going to learn some new words. They are not going to feel good. Try to be supportive. They're going to be embarrassed. They're going to be ashamed. This is a scary time for them. They don't know what happened. So be supportive. Really encourage them to get transported to a hospital. If they get up and take off on you, so be it. Don't chase them down. They're okay if they could do that. We really would like them to go to a hospital so we can offer them medication-assisted treatment, available at all hospitals. People are unaware of this still, so please share this information that will help them to feel better. This is the effects of Narcan. This is detox. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, high blood pressure, they feel miserable. But all of these side effects pale in comparison to the danger of not breathing. Not breathing, you're dead. Can you give them Narcan if you're not sure what they took? Absolutely, 100%. You're not going to harm them. You're absolutely not. And with this advent of stimulants being cut with Narcan, don't hesitate. Just use it. Does it matter if it's a street drug or a prescription drug? Absolutely not. Give it to the wrong person, you're not going to hurt them. It's a do no harm drug. This is a Good Samaritan law, critical on a college campus. All the words are in here. Please, please be aware of this and share this with your colleagues, with your patients. Covers two people. Person who in good faith seeks health care for someone experiencing a drug or alcohol overdose or other life-threatening medical emergency. Hazing events is where this came from. The young gentleman that was exercised to death, someone could have called for help. Didn't have to happen. It also covers that person. Only two people. So if there's a big old party and everybody's underage and drinking, everybody else get lost. Only two people. You're not going to be charged with any of these things. So drugs up to an A2 felony, alcohol for underage drinkers, any amount of marijuana, paraphernalia offenses, sharing of drugs, none of those are going to be charged for those two people. You will not be protected from a A1 felony, which is so much drugs I can't even wrap my head around it. And if you have a warrant, that does not go away. People have to understand that. That is your business. Take care of your business. It doesn't go away. So a little bit of nuts and bolts of Narcan needs to be kept at some basic room temperature. Don't make yourself crazy here, folks. Like I said, it is pretty stable. Try to keep it that way. If you think it became corrupt, reach out to us. I'll get you another kit. Keep it as a backup. You never know when you're going to need it. It does have an expiration date. It's usually about 18 months to 2 years out. Additionally, there's studies being done right now. I believe the studies are confirming up to 5 years. I'll share that when it's published. But once again, licensed professionals, you have to have it within parameters. Keep the expired as a backup. Can't hurt. If the medication becomes corrupted, like I said, please call us. The key here, I think, is the freezing. It's got a little glass vial in it, and when liquid expands, it breaks that glass. It's a huge problem. This is text for Narcan. Please share this far and wide. Anyone can do it 24/7. We will get the Narcan out in the mail to you. No questions asked. No questions at all. It's not just Narcan. We also provide connection information for people, treatment information, peer information, hotline. So it's a way to connect people to care. And once again, folks, please don't trust your cocaine. None of the stimulants. This is what we're seeing. Share this message. We cannot lose any more people. This is really, really devastating. It's heartbreaking. This is one of our peers. This is Antonio Estrada. Antonio has worked with me for 21 years. He has 21 years in recovery. If you have any patients that want support, please refer them to him. Antonio is there. He is supportive. What we have learned here is we need to develop a cohort of peers because they have knowledge we will never have, and I've been very successful. This is my team. This is all of our emails and our phone numbers. Please reach out to us for anything that you need. If you need more training, if you have family members, friends, clients that need help, you just have a question. You need more Narcan, anytime. We are available at any time. So at this time, I'll open up the chat for questions. I did put in the chat initially, folks, if you would like Narcan, And also, I need you to email me with your spelling, if you want this, your spelling of your name and your mailing address. I'll pop it in the mail to you today with all the support information. Other than that, we will be providing certificates of completion also for the next, they're good for 2 years. I will be providing them to Deborah electronically, but I can mail you hard copies also. So my email is there, cheryl.moore@erie.gov. Please shoot me an email now that you're on. I will send it with your mailing address. I'll get the Narcan in the mail to you right away. So, any questions at this point?
Cheryl, I really enjoyed that. Thanks very much for your lecture.
You're welcome.
I did have a question about Suboxone for the long term on these patients. First off, we give them, Narcan initially. That's saving them from the day, but they have that habit, which is, as you said, an ongoing lifetime problem. Is there things that we can expect them long term to taper off of Suboxone? Are they on that forever? Is there long term effects on their like their liver or the kidneys from that medication long term? Is there any way of tapering them off?
That's a good question. Well, recent research shows that people need to be on medication-assisted treatment a minimum of 2 years before they even think about tapering off. And really, there's no reason to taper them off. So everybody's individual. Some people may need to be on it for the rest of their life. Other people may be able to come off. We're learning more about the production of our own chemicals. And if your own chemical system, don't ever give up on the human brain. Think of the stroke patient. If your own chemical system regenerates, start producing what it needs, the dopamine serotonin balance, and those mu receptors settle down, they're never going to go away. They're always going to be there in the background. Good question about liver function. These people have been taking long-term opioids to begin with. This, at least we know what it is. It's clean. The things that they're getting on the street. Would I be careful about it? Absolutely. Monitor like any kind of medication that we have people on. When we put them on blood pressure meds, we monitor their blood. And it's really, we need to do that. We need to continue. So that is a great question. So don't be afraid to talk to your patients about it. But if one individual needs to be on Suboxone the rest of their life, so be it. Other people, if they can taper off. The problem with medication-assisted treatment over long term, we've always gone into it with the mindset of coming off of it. That's not the way to look at it. The idea to look at it is to manage your disease. Think of type 2 diabetes. We'd really love it if people would manage it with diet and exercise. About 1% of the population can. So we give people metformin, we give them human insulin, and we don't give it to them with the anticipation when we order it. Okay, I'm going to order it now for 3 months. But if they can, change diet and exercise and change their need for it, that's a wonderful thing. So it's pretty similar in that way. It is very hard to wrap your head around.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks. And then I have a second follow-up question. About fentanyl. If we know that it's so pervasive, and we have a patient that's routinely taking it, and they're going to take it no matter what our advice, and we have to just let that kind of thing happen. Right. Is there anything that would be available these days that we could suggest to them that there might be like a litmus test for whatever drug they're using that they could place in their drug that they got off the street to test if there's fentanyl in it?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are test strips available today, and I can send you a link of where they can be. Evergreen Health Services has had some resources and been able to provide them. So if there are people, you can refer them to us. I do have some strips. I'm happy to share them with them. The issue with the fentanyl test strips, and what I want people to be aware of, is they keep changing the analogs so quickly that they don't pick up all of them.
So it's not easy for them to use or easy for them to access, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're very easy. The test strips are very easy to access and use, but the drug cartels keep changing the analogs, so they keep updating the test strips, but they don't pick up all of the analogs.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I always, tell people that don't feel 100% secure, but they pick up most of them, and they've been changing them rapidly.
And they're cheap or free for them to access?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll give them to them for free. No problem at all. I don't know if you can see. This is the box. I put it up in the camera.
I can see that. Yeah. I'd like to have a link to that for myself so that I can provide that to somebody if I ever come across that. So that they can test it.
Yep, absolutely. Happy to give you some too. But yeah, we're happy to do that. I mean, it's just another harm reduction mechanism to make sure that people are really trying to be safe. Yeah. Thank you for asking that.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have anything else? So I've recorded the training for you. It takes a minute for it to transcribe and come up on my computer. Once it does, I will send you, I think we'll put it up on our YouTube channel and I'll send you a link to it because it's pretty big. Anyone have anything else? Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks again, Cheryl.
Have a